Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. So, just to share, we have a great speaker today, John Taylor. We're first going to start off in prayer, and then I'm going to each give you a tabletop question. So when afterwards, we're going to all gather and choose our lunches from the table back there. And then when you come back to your table, you will discuss the question. And it's a great way to have a conversation, get things going. All right. All right, start in prayer. Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this warm gathering of business owners today. We ask for your blessing of the food we are about to eat, the conversations we are about to have, and for each person that is here today. May we each be a rainbow in somebody else's cloud. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. So we're going to do one table at a time. So if you wouldn't mind, we'll start back there at table 7. And you just, there's different lunches there with sandwiches and salads. You can choose your lunch and then go back, and then we'll just do one table at a time. And then we'll start off with a question. Oh, let me give you that question. And this is a question from John. And it's, do you think you might have a little bit of an entrepreneur spirit in you? Why or why not? All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and start and I have the great pleasure of introducing the gentleman that started Marketplace Connection and has brought it here to Edmonds. The Director of Marketplace Connection, Mr. John Sweeney.
Thank you, Debbie. I hope you really enjoyed your lunch. How many got what you had hoped to get? Most of you did. How many want to file a complaint with the director? John Taylor. Why does that not surprise me? Hey, we are very excited that you're here for the launch of Marketplace Connections in beautiful Edmonds. And I'd like to take just 5 minutes. This is a good test for me, see if I can do this in 5 minutes, and try to answer 3 questions. Why, what, and how? There's a guy named Simon Sinek that wrote a good book on Start with Why. So I will try to begin with the why question. Marketplace Connections exist to create environments of grace, truth, and love so people grow professionally and personally. We feel like environments are very important. Most of you came here and you're kind of going like this. You're kind of testing the environment. My hope is that when you leave, you'll think about 3 words: warm, inviting, and stimulating. I hope that our table hosts have warmly invited each of you. We all know that John Taylor will be very stimulating, right? And how many people here know John Taylor and got invited by John Taylor? Yeah. How many did not get invited by John Taylor? It's so wonderful that you're raving fans. Is that what we call them? Right? Yeah, and I'm one of them also. We hope that you come back and that you're here, I know, to kind of check things out. But one of the things that we do in the how category, or I should say the what category, is to gather. When people gather around common interests, they sharpen each other. This last 6 months, where's Ian? Ian, are you back there? Ian has become a good friend. He goes to the Bellevue group also. Ian has really helped sharpen the focus of Marketplace Connections. And I've asked Ian if he would help us with the marketing, the branding, these kinds of things. And like this says up here, he's really sharpened everything that we've been doing. So I am hoping that part of the reason that we gather together will be to sharpen you and some of your skills also. Secondly, discover. When people discover new truth, they add knowledge and wisdom. Let me share a comment from one of the people that goes to our Bellevue group. This is Justin Valente. Justin is a personal trainer. And I'm just going to read you what Justin wrote the other day. So many of the talks have been enlightening to a next step in my life. I invited my wife to attend, and both of us have left the meetings inspired both spiritually and business-wise. The knowledge and stories aren't sugar-coated or judging this or that, but real stories about the struggles of normal people. The group has been a blessing, and Jen and I feel each and every meeting is going to give us one more piece to complete our puzzle. So Justin and Jen have been coming to Bellevue for about the last 9 months or so, and I thought there isn't anything better than to have somebody like that just share how it's had an impact on them. When people navigate life challenges together, they grow professionally and personally. This last year has been a challenging year for me. There are people in this room that have helped me work through the challenges that Pat and I have gone through. And I know that I grow as a result of being involved in a group like that. We all go through life challenges, and that's one of the many things that I like about John is that he's real about the ups and downs and the challenges that he's gone through. How do we do it? Monthly meetings. We meet in Bellevue. We met last Friday. We've been meeting there for about 3 years or so. Discovery groups. We have small groups that meet together on a regular basis, usually every other week. Professional and spiritual coaching. One of the things that I love to do is come alongside people that are asking good, big questions about life. I love to wrestle with big questions and be a friend and reach out and walk with people as they wrestle with those big questions. So that's kind of who we are, and our hope is that you'll go away with a good understanding of what we're doing and how we're going about doing it. Now I get the privilege to introduce my buddy and my friend. John is the founding principal of Taylor, Gregory, Broadway Architects. He's been a member of many, many different nonprofit organizations. But as I thought about introducing John, I thought, there's one statement that for me represents who he is. He brings a spirit of authenticity to his talks as a result of the hard things that he's gone through. We've had about 25 or 30 speakers in Bellevue. They've all been excellent. What John shared several months ago really stood out because it was so authentic, it was so genuine, and it was just so real on some of the challenges that he's faced. So John, you're on. I'll let you take it from here.
Hey, welcome everyone. This is a wonderful turnout for our first Marketplace Connection in Edmonds. Thanks for being here. How many of you, I'm just kind of curious, how many of you either work or live in Edmonds? The city, all right, wow, okay. Nobody over at this table, all right. It's okay. It's all right. It's all right. It's not a criteria to come to the Edmonds Marketplace Connection lunch if you don't live in Edmonds. A number of people over here at this table live in Shoreline and Bothell and Linwood, and that's okay. This is not an exclusive Edmonds club, all right? But the majority of you are right here close by. And I got to tell you, Gene and I moved to Edmonds about 29 years ago, and we absolutely love Edmonds. So, but when we moved here and our kids were growing up, back in the mid-'80s, and my daughter Jana is here this afternoon, and privileged to have Jana here. But one of the things our kids said about Edmonds back in the 80s is they called it Deadmonds. And the reason for that is Edmonds was a pretty sleepy, dead place. You'd go downtown at night and it was quiet. Ernie, did you live here back in the 80s? No, okay. So, but the really exciting thing is that it's become really vibrant. And all of our kids moved away, and they said, we probably are not going to come back to Deadmonds. All 4 of our kids have come back to Edmonds. They all live within 4 miles of us, and they say, we absolutely love Edmonds. And they go downtown and they shop and they go to the restaurants and the movie theater. They go to the park. They go to the dog park. They're downtown Edmonds more than Gene and I am. And so it's really exciting to talk about the spirit of entrepreneurship in the light of marketplace connections. And John, I hope that in the days ahead, as we continue to meet for lunches, that we can have some dialogue about what that means for the vibrant connections in Edmonds and surrounding communities. I want to talk today about the spirit of entrepreneurship only because that's the topic John gave me. Thank you, John. I really appreciate that. But I think here's the three big ideas that I really would like us to ponder. If you can't see this, I'm going to read them to you. Three big ideas. What is the spirit of entrepreneurship? What is it? I had to look it up. And why does it matter to us in our communities? In Edmonds, if it's in Bothell, Gabby, if it's in Linwood, Dennis, or Shoreline, or Linwood, Bear Keith. Why does it matter to us in our communities? And what can we do about it? And when I get to the topic about what we can do about it, it might have a little different twist than maybe you thought where we were going to go with this. But I think you're going to sense my heart as we talk about it. This first one, the spirit of entrepreneurship. The word spirit is really not a spooky term. As we were talking around the table here a moment ago about this, do you think you have a little bit of the spirit of entrepreneurship? Several people at our table said, well, yes, of course. This word spirit comes from the root word pneuma, or breath. It's like the same root that comes from pneumatic tools or from pneumonia. It's the very life, it's the very heart and soul. It's the breath. You can't live without breath. And so those of us that got something inside of us that we just have to get out, entrepreneurship, it's our very life of who we are. It's the very heart and soul. When that catches on with a whole group, it's something that brings a dynamic that is very full of synergy. Okay, think about this for a minute. Here's a question. What does Seattle, with our Seahawks team, what is unique about our Seahawks team in Seattle that no other city's football team has?
12th man.
The 12th man. That's slash woman. Judy, you got it. And that's right. We've got the 12th man. Nobody else has that. And the unique thing about that is it's not just us as spectators anymore. We're in the game and helping the Seahawks win. We're a part of the team. I was driving back from Aberdeen on a business trip on Thursday. I timed my trip back through downtown Seattle right at 5:30. And I tell you, there was nobody on I-5 at 5:30 Thursday afternoon. I was going 70 miles an hour past the Tully's Old Rainier Brewery building. And I was listening to the game on the radio, and you couldn't hear the announcers, could you? It was so loud you couldn't hear them. And I thought, I'm going to turn off the radio. I rolled down the window. I looked down, I was going 65 miles an hour. And as I went between the Rainier Brewery building and downtown Seattle, I could hear the roar of the stadium. Now, that team spirit, I'm convinced, got us to the Super Bowl last year. Because that is the kind of spirit that caught on to us all, didn't it? The very breath, the heart, the passion that goes along with being a part of something bigger than ourselves. So let's define for a moment what entrepreneurship is. Now, I used this definition over in Bellevue a couple months ago. I'm going to use it again here. Most of you didn't see this. There's a lot of definitions if you go online of what an entrepreneur is, but I like this one the best. Okay, here it is. An entrepreneur is one who organizes, operates, manages, and networks required resources with considerable initiative. Okay, I'm going to stop right there for a moment. Let me repeat it. Organizes, operates, manages, and networks required resources with considerable initiative. How many of you in this room would say that that definition somewhat represents you? All right, at least 95% of the room raised their hands. The rest of this definition is risk. And I brought my risk game last time in Bellevue. I forgot to, I think Scott came back and got his risk game back, because that's my favorite game. But the rest of this definition is an risk for a business or other venture. Risk is the element of the possibility of loss, suffering, harm, danger, and inability to accomplish. Now, when I started my business 24 years ago this month, and me, myself, and I went above my garage, where Jana now lives, I took a huge risk. I had 4 Bambinos at home. My wife was home because we had small kids. We had absolutely no savings in the bank. And my first day, Gabby and Rich Canal, I sat in my office and I was scared to death. And what I was scared to death of was not so much that I couldn't do the work, if I had any. What scared me to death was this sense of failure and the humiliation that would result, because I just had a problem with pride and I wasn't going to look like a fool if this wasn't going to work. Thank goodness that worked in my favor, because I went out and I pursued the work. But some of this is going for it. If you go online, there's a lot of funny definitions online of entrepreneur. I'm just going to read a couple. So one entrepreneur said to the other, "What made you decide to go into business for yourself?" The other entrepreneur said, "It was something my boss just said to me." Ted Turner said, "My son is now an entrepreneur. That's what you're called when you don't have a job." Roy Ash, the founder of Litton Industries, gave $15 million to Harvard. Served under the administrations of Nixon and Ford, said an entrepreneur is someone who bites off a little bit more than he can chew, hoping he'll quickly learn how to chew it. Lastly, Earl Flynn said, an entrepreneur is someone whose problem lies in reconciling their gross habits with their net income. We love what we do. You've heard the saying that if you love what you do, you'll never have to work another day in your life. An entrepreneur's pneuma, we who believe so passionately in our hearts that we have something to give away, drives us to do it, to go for it, and give it away, regardless of the risk involved. Okay, I'm seeing some heads nodding, almost in pain as I say that. So, another big idea, did I lose my screen? I lost my screen because I probably pushed a wrong button up here. The other big idea I want us to ponder is, why does it matter to us and our community in Edmonds or other communities? And I actually was going to play a clip here, and the soundtrack of this clip is probably even more important than the actual picture of it. Oh wow, there's my Skype. The clip that you're going to see here in a moment is a young man by the name of Isaac Hall. Isaac Hall was on the first newsreel of the Oso slide. And Isaac and his buddy were driving down the road. Isaac lives 4 miles downstream from the Oso slide. And he was driving down the road with his buddy just a few moments before the Oso slide. They came across the mud flow across the highway, realizing that this was a pretty significant slide. They got out of the car and they started walking uphill along the side of the mud flow, realizing there could be cars trapped here. There could be people whose houses could be buried. And Isaac and his friend were the ones you might have remembered that showed when the helicopter came down, Isaac and his buddy pulled a 4-year-old boy out of the mud. And Isaac is in okay, it doesn't look like it's going to come up. This was a news clip right off the TV. And Isaac was the one who, actually you saw in the news clip, pulled the boy out of the mud. They threw a rope down him because the helicopter landed on top of a rock. And it's being shown on my computer right now. But how many remember that news clip? All right, quite a few of you. It was shown over and over again. And the rescuer from the helicopter threw that red rope down to Isaac. His buddy helped push him up the hill and handed the 4-year-old boy to the helicopter rescuer, and the young boy was saved. 1 month ago, Isaac's wife answered the phone 4 miles downstream from the slide. She answered the phone and kind of quite confused about who was on the line. And she came and got Isaac, and she said, "Isaac, the phone is for you. It's a lady who says she's from the White House." And Isaac basically was, "You mean the Myers down the road?" She says, "No, I don't think so. It's the White House." And, something about having people come back to Washington, D.C. who have been a part of a natural disaster around the United States for a honoring ceremony for our part, in the Oso slide. And so Isaac basically, I'm not sure if he said it on the phone or not, but basically said, "Why would I want to do that? This is Obama's White House." Why would? And his heart was, do you realize, folks, that we ran out of boot grease here in Oso? Because in this mudslide, it's full of septic tank debris, it's full of propane tanks that have gotten into the mud. It's full of gunk and gook and debris. And all of our rescuers, $250 boots and $500 boots, we don't have enough boot grease. We've ordered boot grease from all over the country. But my mom and I and our family got online. We looked up the formula. We found that the main ingredient for boot grease is beeswax, and so we went out and got all the beeswax from all the farmers in the area, and we are busy making boot grease. And he turned down the invitation to go to Washington, D.C. to be honored. The question that I have on my slide is, does it matter to us and our communities? And can I suggest that it matters to every one of us that we come in contact with? Why? Because life does throw us curveballs. Life throws us curveballs. We may never have a natural disaster in Edmonds or in your community like what happened at Oso. But when life throws me a curveball, or when life throws our community a curveball, do you know what I mean by curveball? It's like when the stuff, the SHI, hits the fan. I want to be around some Isaac Halls. Isaac Hall is Janet Taylor's first cousin and my wife's nephew. And that family has been 100% committed to their community in Oso. Now, later this month on September 25th on Channel 9, on 2 days in a row, Channel 9 is going to do a documentary on the families of Oso. And our family, our cousin and nephew and Jean's sister Carla and husband Tom are going to be interviewed as a part of that documentary. But do you know how many calls Isaac has gotten from being on talk shows? You know, that just happens, folks. And he did not want, his heart, his passion, his pneuma was not to make any kind of a spectacle or any kind of an advantage from his perspective on what the heart of the community was there. Isaac, I think, and many of us, I think, in this room are the real deal. It's the real package, and the real package is the pneuma. It's the breath of life that happens to us even when we have the stuff of life that hits the fan. I have the extreme privilege today to have my old boss here. Old boss. Old boss. Marlon Gabbert, I worked for 14 years. And when I first went to work for Gabby, it was above the old spaghetti factory downtown Seattle. Richard Cannell over here in the red shirt was next door, and they were previously had been partners together. And every day at 10 o'clock in the morning, the spaghetti sauce smells would start to seep up through the ceiling. And the first 2 weeks I worked there, I thought it was great. For 2 years after that, it got to be really sickening. But this guy right here, Marlon Gabbert, hired me when I knew nothing. And I learned the business of architecture through Gabby. And he gave me everything that he had to give me as a mentor. And Gabby, I owe my life to you in the aspect that it got me going in terms of igniting the pneuma and the passion that was in me in terms of the business of architecture. Now, when I left Gabby 25 years ago this month, I became competition. And I got to tell you, folks, it's really an honor that he and I have remained such close friends. We get together maybe twice a year or 3 times a year and have lunch. And that he's here today really to support me. But the fan of life for Gabby during the height of his career, and during, if you're anything like Gabby and I and some of the rest in this room, when you give yourself to the pneuma that's in you, you give your life to it day and night. And when the stuff hits the fan, like for Gabby, who lost his son to muscular dystrophy, things got a lot more lonely real quick. But thank goodness there was a few people that were around to support Gabby. I wasn't around at that time to support him. But the toughest part is the folks sometimes you think are going to be the biggest support aren't there and don't give it. And Gabby, you experienced that, but you were able to go through that and be a person that is more of a mentor to me and the rest of us than I think you'll ever know. Sitting next to Gabby is Dennis Chiver. Now, Dennis, I asked Gabby's permission. I didn't ask your permission to point you out. But Dennis worked in the same firm. And when I started my business, Dennis came to work for me. He was my first employee above the garage. And so now he's sitting next to Gabby at this lunch. Debbie Rosenfeld, our MC that was up here, who led us in the introductions as we sat down for lunch. Debbie and I have only known each other about 3 years now, but Gene and I have really come to love Debbie and appreciate her. Debbie, I don't know if you said it, but Debbie owns Snap Fitness, downtown Edmonds at 5th and Walnut. Debbie's Snap Fitness, I love it because it has an atmosphere of healing and health and well-being. And when you go in there, you are greeted with such a warm welcome. Her staff, the friendliness, you can tell that they genuinely care. I was a part of another health club, not to be mentioned, here in Edmonds that was a pretty unfriendly place. Some of you are nodding your heads. And yet, I was willing to pay a few extra dollars to become a Snap Fitness because the moment, Debbie, I walked into Snap Fitness, you could tell it was just in the pneuma. It was just in the atmosphere. It was just in what you and your team have created there. But Debbie, you went through, and by the way, I have permission to share this from Debbie. She went through a time in her life not too long ago where the stuff hit the fan. Debbie lost her son through the episode of his taking his own life. And yet Debbie has embraced that not only through what grief is still there, but Debbie, you have embraced that in such a way that you go out and you're not afraid now because of your healing and your pneuma and your well-being and your passion for life and who you are. You are very open about this. And not only that, but as you share in your business, you're very open about this and what took place in your life. Folks, these, for me, these are the people that I want to be around. Okay, John Maxwell, his most famous statement, and this statement is probably, I don't know, it's probably 15 years old, but it's still being repeated over and over again. John Maxwell said, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. People really don't care what you're selling. Simon Sinek, in his TED Talk, and you mentioned it earlier, John. How many have seen Simon Sinek's TED Talk, The Golden Circle? All right, so if you haven't seen it, just go online, type in Simon Sinek and watch this. It's powerful. Simon Sinek said, people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. So you see, it's the totality of who we have become. And if we're only about the biggest and the best in the Pacific Northwest, if we're only about that kind of ego, and I've had to deal with my own ego. As entrepreneurs, we so believe in what we passionately are pneuma about that sometimes there's a little bit of ego involved. But I would rather buy and be involved in and linked with someone that's got a limp to them a little bit, because now the total package is going to be something that I can trust, that I can give my life to, that I can link arms with. John Maxwell, in his Facebook page, said this yesterday. The position, your position, does not make you a leader. The title, the promotion, the fancy corner office doesn't make you a leader. No, it's relationships with people that are the foundation, the very heart of leadership. Have you ever worked for someone you didn't like? Gabby, I always liked you. I did. In fact, I loved it, Gabby. I don't think I've ever shared this with you. I just thought of it. I loved it when we would leave the office and I could go in the car with Gabby to a project. Because that's the time when we were away from the busyness of the office, and I could ask Gabby questions and Gabby would talk. You know, sometimes us entrepreneurs are so focused when we're at our work. I learned from more, Gabby, when I was able to go with you. But have you ever worked with someone you didn't like? It's difficult, isn't it? On the other hand, the leader you will follow anywhere and everywhere is one who knows and cares about you and values you. This person has your best interest at heart. It is the leader who comes alongside to help you to improve and grow. So, the third big idea is, what can we do? Simple answer: pass it on. Pass it on. You know, I was thinking, Jana, honestly, on Wednesday, when you called me up 2 days ago and you were so alive about this idea, about the possibility of making a possibility of starting a business, and you started to voice the things that you were going to write down. And at the same time, and I haven't shared this with you yet, at the same time, Jana's just going back to school full-time at Bastyr University, which is very, very cool. But at the same time, I'm thinking, money, 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 money. and what happens with the tuition of college? And oh my goodness, the tuition of college is phenomenal. But nothing can, I thought, I was so excited for Jana's pneuma that was coming out of her, the spirit. And I thought, there's nothing that can replace the tuition of life. There's nothing that can replace even the tough obstacles of life. There's no way we can pay for that kind of tuition. And yet, no matter how difficult it is, we've got to go through it. What can we do? We can pass it on. You know, Gabby did that with me in my relationship with Debbie. Just in friendship, we share that kind of life together. But when I first went out of business, I also sought out a man by the name of Harold King. And Harold King was somebody that many young guys were going to, and women, to get his advice. He was a person who exported Washington State fruit products to mostly Asia. And Harold was retired, and he was a wise man. And so I got my appointment with Harold, and I thought, wow, this is it. I'm gonna get some great advice. And I sat down with Harold, and I brought my poorly scribbled business plan, and I brought my notepad, and I sat down with anticipation. And Harold said, I only have one thing really to share with you, John. Thinking to myself, wow. Here's the golden key to success that will now be mine. He said, here it is, John. You have to have more coming in than what's going out. There it is. Thinking to myself, that's it? Really, really, Harold? Really? And the reason I have this written down is John asked me to write this for the newsletter a couple weeks ago. Harold then said, you have to have more cash flow coming in than's going out. You've got to have more rest and downtime coming in than energy expended to recoup. And you've got to make deposits into others emotionally, or you will get drained emotionally. In other words, you got to give yourself away. He concluded by saying, if you don't, you'll crash financially, physically, and emotionally. And this is going to take constant effort and repeated choices. All right, so folks, I'm going to end with this. What can we do? Do what Gabby did with me. Do what maybe some of you have already done. In fact, I know some of you here in this room have already done this. I know this is part of the passion of Jack Hoover here as well. Pass it on. Spend some time with someone and get to know their passion. Get to know why they do what they do. Because it's lonely sometimes, isn't it? You know, oftentimes we talk about what we want to have on our tombstone. And you know the joke about, I wish I'd spent more hours at work, isn't something we want to have on our tombstone. I've thought about this many times, and I've wrote down some notes. And I don't know which one I'm going to use, but here's one of them. I may have passed on, but I also paid it forward. Folks, when I was crashing and burning, and I told my story at Bellevue last month, and if you want to know my story, you can go online, John. I think it's still online there. If you want to know about the night, those of you who are here from TGB Architects, that I went out and got rip-roaring drunk with 2 or 3 bottles of wine during the very lowest and darkest time of my life. 2 guys came down to the Edmonds Marina on my boat, drunk as a skunk. I was. And Kevin Weisbrod said to me, John, I'm going to tell you something that you have told me over and over again. And I don't remember much about that night except those 2 guys spent the night with me. And the other thing I remembered is Kevin's words. He said, John, the best years of your life are still ahead. Because this is an opportunity you've been given to become the person that you've always wanted to be. And this is your opportunity because you know what? I'm going to be there for you to know the best years of your life are still ahead. I believe it, John. For those of you who know me, I have a very strong faith and a quest for a deep spiritual journey. Do you see these guys trying to come up here and trying to get me to quit? That's because I'm quitting. not in life. I have a real deep faith, and you're saying, John, you just shared with us how you went out and got roaring drunk. Really? Are you sure? And there's the Jesus of the Bible, and a friend of mine, he said to his disciples, if you want to be great in my kingdom, the kingdom that is no like any other kingdom on the earth, if you want to be a part of something different, something that's full of life and full of passion and full of pneuma, the total real deal. John, if you want to be the total real deal and pass it on, if you want this in my kingdom, then learn to be the servant of all. Hey guys, I hope you come back next month. Thank you so much.
Powerful message. Thanks, John. Now I have a privilege to introduce you to an Edmonds business owner, Judy Salinas of Glazed and Amazed. And Judy, how long have you been?
I've been there over 10 years. I'm so tired.
Please welcome Judy Salinas.
You didn't tell me I was going to follow John Taylor. Come on. Wow, that's some pressure. I'm Judy Salinas. I own Glazed and Amazed. I'm at 514 Main Street here in Edmonds. Many days I put on my apron and I sweep my front walk and I just feel like I'm in Mayberry. My studio is a paint-your-own pottery studio, and we also offer fused glass, clay handprints, and we've just started offering canvas painting. We do a little bit of everything. We're open 7 days a week. I brought a couple samples to show you. Pretty fun stuff. We're there to be the other half of your business craziness. You can come in there and just be creative. We don't really have any rules. We don't have any pressure. We're there to be fun and creative and just be that outlet. We do tons of birthday parties. We help in the community, lots of field trips. We get big groups of children in all the time. Often help with auction projects that raise lots of money for schools and their big programs, and try to really give back to the community. I've been down here for about 10 and a half years, and I think probably in the last 3 or 4 years is when the change really happened for me. I found that I was very, very caught up in my business and my numbers and making my goals, and everything was just wrapped around that, making that percentage of increase. And one day I was out for a power walk, and I walked by the little white church. And that was the changing moment for me. There was this big sign out there for Alpha saying, "Is this all there is? Could there be more?" And I was like, thinking about my numbers, and thought, there might be something there for me. So that was a changing point for me when I got involved in the Little White Church. And I think the community is a major influence in my business, who I am. We try really hard to give back to the community and be involved. And I think you're right. If you do what you love, it isn't work. Some days when I'm cleaning the bathrooms and emptying the garbage, it feels a little like work. But there's that. So we offer, I'll just show you a couple little samples, glass fusing, where you can come in and make a project. You start with a glass base. We have all the pieces cut up and ready right for you right there in the window. We'll show you how to use the tools. You just lay the pieces on. Yeah, we do glass fusing. We do the pottery, which most people are probably aware of. So you would come in, I could have had this unwrapped, and start with a plain piece of pottery. So it would look something like this. It's called bisque. It's already been cleaned and fired. It's bisque. And then we have stencils, stamps, paints, brushes, everything you need to complete your project. We'll walk you through it. You leave it with us. We glaze, fire, and you pick up in 5 days. And recently, since a little business around the corner went out of business for a canvas painting, we are now offering canvas painting. And tonight is the Seahawk logo. Yes, go Hawks! Good Friday on the 12th man. Pretty fun stuff. So I've got some brochures out here to kind of show you. Select a piece of unfinished pottery, choose your colors, paint your design. We'll blaze and fire masterpiece, pick it up in 5 days. Creation, recreation, same with the fused glass, tells a little bit about that. And that's about it for me. I think I'm under my 4 minutes. So thank you for listening, and what a great group of people. I feel really honored to be here, and I really hope everyone will come back next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Thank thank you, everybody, for coming to our very first charter lunch, and we hope that you will be coming back next month. Our next speaker is Jill Asau. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. And she will be talking about expect the unexpected to grow your business. Our next lunch is Friday, October 10th, from 12 to 1:30. So thank you again. It was a pleasure to meet each one of you, and if I haven't gotten a chance to meet you, I would love to. And if you haven't already contributed your portion to lunch, just please leave it on the table, $10 or a check, cash, or a check made out to CoLink. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb.